Fauci. I love it when Kennedy sings it.
So our stage manager, Josh here, just gleefully came up and said there's a horrible meme where apparently taken from when I'm like 9 months pregnant and all bloated. There's blood coming out of my mouth. And he's gleeful about this. And I'm starting to think that perhaps he's the one that created this meme, Josh.
Were you prize fighting?
I don't know. I haven't seen it, but
I haven't seen it either.
Wow.
But Josh apparently loves it.
Googling it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And you get that email or that social media because
I'm beloved.
Okay.
Paris.
Is that what that looks like?
Well, at least somebody.
Who do you think is more beloved, you or Juan Williams?
I think people sometimes think Juan Williams and I are the same person because we've been together at one place.
You've never been on my show at the same time.
I mean, at least somebody cares.
We're like Janet and Michael. God rest his soul.
Like Latoya and Michael.
Latoya and Michael. God rest his soul. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, wow. We have a lot of people in the live chat right now. Let's be interesting. So, so you know what? I want to ask you about your service and just really where we are with this whole thing with Syria. Because did you notice at the UN yesterday, President Obama gave like a cursory mention of Syria and the civil war there and just moved right along. And we are in a position now
to talk about himself.
We're like fighting wars because of that civil war that's going on. Am I wrong about that? Like, isn't there a lot coming out of there because of what's happening there?
No, of course. I mean, what would he mention? The refugee crisis
that I thought the red line was blue.
Facilitated that the ISIS emerged and took over, territory in 2 states that they don't even recognize. I mean, there's nothing good for him to say there. So instead, he's going to stand in front of the UN and talk about this amazing future of global humanity where we all get along and there are no borders,
especially in places like Yemen and Libya.
Oh yeah,
great.
Wonderful places.
Yeah.
It was the exact contrast of this election cycle was his speech. Donald Trump has said it. It's globalism versus Americanism, and that's what he's in for. So he would never be self-critical and say it's my policies that helped create this. Instead, he's talking about the symptom, which are the refugees, as opposed to the
Don't you
source
ever
of the
feel
problem.
like this argument is maybe like 2 decades too late? I mean, as an undergrad 15 years ago, however many years ago, 10 years ago, I mean, we were talking about the forces of globalization and not as it's not some pie in the sky.
No, globalism is different than globalization.
Yes, but they both go hand in hand. And what he was talking about yesterday is a lot about how the forces of globalization, no matter how much many people in the United States would like some of them to be turned back, is not happening.
I get that.
And so when people push back and say, have this attitude of like reverting to this sort of like closed market kind of, like that's not happening. That's not even an option.
That's his straw man characterization. Globalization is, of course, happening. Media, money, all of that.
The New World Order?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean I have to accept someone from an international capital telling me how I ought live or that I should keep my borders open or that my flag doesn't matter anymore. That's globalism. That's different than globalization.
Can I ask you a question?
And you can't put globalization back in the box, but we got to fight globalism.
But I ask you a question, and I legitimately would love to. This is not a gotcha question.
Thank you for that, Kevin.
No, but sincerely, I actually.
Who is the leader of South Korea?
Ban Ki-moon, no. He's the former head of the UN Secretary General. I don't know, but his last name may be Kim.
If Donald Trump gets that question in the debate, you should say, I don't know, but Hillary probably does.
But I have a question for you. My question is this. If you had to do this, if you were Barack Obama, and I'm critical of his Syria policy, the civil war begins. You assume we can't have prevented the civil war from happening, right? The civil war begins. On the one hand, you have Assad. On the other hand, you have the rebels, who at that point may be good guys, may not be good guys. We're not really clear on who they are. What should he have done? And this is not a gotcha question. I don't know what the answer to that question is.
And I would be as interested in Jillian's answer as mine. I don't think there were a set of great answers. And I do recognize that there was a tendency. I mean, first of all, the Arab Spring, what they did with the Arab Spring was sort of like what Bush did, except minus the follow through. There was this sense that democracy was going to break out on its own. And instead of putting our thumb on the scale, as we did in Iraq with a massive intervention, they said, we hope it breaks out anyway. They were assuming that would happen with Assad. They thought Assad was going to go. And so his proclamations were going to be a foreshadowing of that.
But isn't it better so maybe that Assad did not go? I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't know. I think we all have to be intellectually honest.
Well, not if you've
that.
recently been beheaded or something by his forces.
Well, no, his forces are not.
Or you're a Syrian who's been, come under chemical gas attack every year for the last 6 months.
That's my question. I don't know. Like if you talk to some Israelis, and I don't speak for them obviously, but if you talk to some of them, they will say that they would rather have Assad there, despite his use of chemical weapons.
Okay, but I think because look at the evidence for that in Iraq. and Libya and Afghanistan, and where
but those countries are perfect examples of how the vacuum is more dangerous.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Can be much worse.
But how many times do we have to have that happen to lack the foresight to not know that something horrible is going to follow? And that's what I don't understand is, we talk about these actors. I think it was impossible to vet the rebels in Syria. And it's all the more reason for, the United States has the best military analysis in the world. And to use that to inform our allies over there to say, okay, Turkey, Jordan, you guys take care of this.
Don't you think
You mean instead of informing
would we have Jordan
like
come over if the Canadians, like if Justin Trudeau turned out to be a fascist and invaded Idaho and Washington State?
It would have helped in the beginning to have at least had clarity on where we stood with regard to the civil war in Syria. We couldn't figure out whether or not we wanted to be friends with that strong man or burn him for turning chemical weapons on his own people. And then I guess we decided as a government that we weren't even going to acknowledge the fact that it happened, except for the fact that it keeps happening.
Well, and one more point on what Kennedy just said is that we're now using our military intelligence to inform the Russians, which is what infuriates me about this peace deal, well, whatever you want to call it, that we've got going on right now with them to work together in Syria, is that really the accumulation of all our military might is going to now play into the Russian.
But to Harris, but just quickly to your point, Harris, you raise an excellent point. On the one hand, Assad stands for everything that we oppose. He used chemical weapons. That is a deal breaker for all civilized people. On the other hand, I think there are probably some, and you tell me, you would obviously know better than I would on this, that there are some, if not many, in the intelligence community who say that better to live with the devil you know than the devil you don't know, and that we can't get Assad, despite the fact that he violated the Geneva Convention and every single norm of international.
Okay, now I have a question, honestly, and this is also not a gotcha question, and you can both answer this. Would the world be better off if Saddam Hussein was still in power?
I knew you were going to say that.
Impossible question.
I believe
you were a war vet in Iraq. What do you say?
I think the world is a better place without Saddam Hussein had we followed through on Iraq properly. Yeah. That's my honest answer.
But that's your contingent on a huge if.
Of course, but I think Iraq is not inevitable failure. It is a missed opportunity because we won it, then we lost it, then we won it again, and then we gave it away. It wouldn't have been perfect, but we could have had a good outcome that's better than Saddam Hussein. If we knew everything we knew now, maybe we would, but you can't live in that world.
Isn't that in essence occupation?
No, you didn't have to occupy it. Just a residual commitment, militarily and diplomatically. You could have done a lot better than what we have.
Well, you knew you were going to have those factions. You knew that it was probably going to be a split state. You needed to stay long enough to see either that process happen or something new come out of it.
Well, and there was an occupation.
Yeah, exactly.
But remember,
all right, I want to talk about this country
anyway.
because that's where our viewers are. And I shared this with Kennedy a moment ago. It's kind of strong on our live chat. CTAE, T-A-E, I think is how you say it, like Bay. The debate on Monday is going to be about who can backpedal, patronize, keep up the lies, and read a good speech. We will learn nothing we don't already know about them. It's just a matter of who walks away being more believed.
The campaigns certainly hope that person is right.
Really?
Yep. In debate prep, the first rule is do no harm.
Wow.
And the second is to ensure that your opponent is harmed.
That's so.
Do you think there could be a scenario where there's a mutual non-engagement a little bit, and they both say nuclear Armageddon is good for neither of us, and so we're going to both do our thing, and it's not as much fireworks as we think?
I think if Donald Trump is going to be, if he's taking conventional advice, and I don't know that he is, and I don't mean conventional in a negative sense, I mean conventional in a from people who've done this before on his team, and there are several. That would be the tack that he would take, in which case I think that's what Hillary would be prepared for. Again, she's preparing, as we've learned, for two different Donald Trumps. If he doesn't, if he goes off, I think, although I don't know, because it never backfired against him in the Republican primaries, but I think this is a different election and a different audience, I would advise him to stick to that strategy. I would advise him not to try to emulate what he did in the Republican primaries, because now people are not looking for their Republican nominee. Now they're looking to meet a commander-in-chief temperament test, and I think he runs the risk of violating that test.
That's good advice.
But can he land a fatal blow to her campaign? And I think he doesn't do that with total bombast.
Does he even need to? I mean, look at the last 3 weeks for Hillary Clinton. I mean, if the house is on fire, do you take out a bucket of water?
You have to. She's still favored to win.
But you think he needs to still be?
He needs. This is why I'm saying he's going to win this debate, regardless of what happens.
This is professional Democratic expectation setting.
Yeah. So wait a minute.
No, it is. Come on. I love you, Julie.
But legitimately, it's not professional Democratic expectation setting. This is the reality. People expect him to go nuts. People expect him to do what he did in the Republican primary. If he doesn't do that, he will have won already.
Can I just say the moments in the debates with Bernie Sanders where it became most contentious, she was said to have won those. So we'll see if that's any sort of a forecast for Donald Trump.
There is a poll right now that we started during Outnumbered on my Twitter page that you can take about who is getting the most positive press, Hillary or Donald. Take it. It's interesting to read the comments. I will be. Thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks for being here, Pete.
Thanks for having me.
See you tomorrow.